Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Jake Gordon and Alex Lord. Guess what, guys? I remembered what we were going to talk about after the break. I remember it. We are going to break down. I'm going to give you guys, it's almost like a buy or sell, pick them off. But listen, this roster is extremely deep. We've seen it all season, especially on the pitching staff. Maybe it could use a little more high-end talent, whether it's the rotation or the bullpen or whatever. But every team can. The depth of this roster is what makes it so great, particularly the pitching staff. So some of these guys are going to have to be left off. If Dylan Lee and Jesse Chavez come back, guys that are currently on the roster are going to have to go. And there's no easy answers. And I'm also going to bring up another guy, Kyle Wright, if he comes back. There's really no easy answers here, especially with the way that Bryce Elder pitched. So I guess, do you want to start off with the rotation or the bullpen first? Because there's only two in the rotation. We can just
let's do rotation.
It's basically my hypothetical here, and I wrote this on the site, sportstalkatl.com. Go visit it, please. Bryce Elder pitched really well. His 6 starts before then had been very bad. If he continued pitching like that, you really have to wonder if he deserves a postseason spot. But if he pitches like this, there's obviously no question. But I think the bigger key here is if Kyle Wright comes back healthy, who is getting that that start? Because I think Charlie Morton gets it over Bryce Elder. I think Charlie Morton eventually figures it out. He's obviously not a lock, but that's what I would say. And if it comes down to Kyle Wright, who's now starting to look healthy, and Bryce Elder, let's say he pitches a little bit worse, let's say he has a 4 ERA the rest of the way, and Kyle Wright's healthy, who's getting that? I mean, it has to be Wright, right?
It's all circumstantial because who knows what Wright's going to look like? And are you assuming Wright comes back
and looks good?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not saying he looks like he did. I'm not saying he looks like he did last year, but the stuff looks good. Like, let's say they're pitching comparably, right? But Wright's stuff looks good.
You always take the stuff in the postseason. Absolutely. Bryce Elder's soft contact. We all think that it is sustainable. Maybe not the 7 scoreless or 7 one hit, but I mean, the stuff always plays in the postseason. You got to go with Kyle Wright. I really don't even think it's a question, but that's a big if. Like, I don't think Kyle Wright makes the postseason roster because I just have a hard time believing he gets stretched out and he is at that level where Bryce Elder already is. Like, I think it's just it's the most uphill battle for Kyle Wright to make the postseason roster, in my opinion.
Yeah, I disagree. I disagree on that. We've seen Kyle Wright, like, that's kind of what he came to his own was the 2021 playoffs. Like, I think the fact, if it's down between him and Elder, like, the fact that Wright's been there before and he's pitched in the World Series and he's pitched well in the World Series, I don't think it's close. But I do agree with you on the point that I can't just assume that he's going to come back and be effective.
That is the whole point I'm making. Is like that is what it's going to happen. I mean, you're just going to have to say who's pitching better come October.
But that's the other thing. Let's say Bryce Elder's the guy, because like I said, you don't need 4 starters in the divisional round. Let's say Bryce Elder is that 4th starter that you hypothetically have on the roster for the divisional round. But we're not even talking about it. That goes a week. Now you're into mid-October, right? Now Kyle Wright has, if he stays healthy, has had plenty of time to stretch out. And I know he's not going to be pitching against live hitters down in Gwinnett or anything, but he is going to be throwing simulated games and stuff like that. Like, he is going to be getting completely stretched out every 5 days to where he's going to be ready. So now you don't even have a number by his name. You just have purely the stuff to go off of going into the NLCS, and who you pick. That's a tough one. I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, but these are the things that are legit. That's going to happen. If he stays healthy, he may not be ready October 1st, all the way stretched out looking the right. But by October 14th, he very well could be. So I think it's an interesting decision. Let's go on to the bullpen. Colin McHugh or Michael Tonkin, if it comes down to those two.
I mean, I like Colin McHugh. I think people are a little too hard on him. Like, it's just always, there's got to be somebody in the bullpen that people rag on. But I think in terms of consistency this year, you probably go Tonkin. But I think McHugh's had a lot of playoff experience. I'm going to look up his playoff stats while you guys talk about this. But if I'm not mistaken, he's been there with the Astros for a while.
Yeah, I mean, Astros, Rays, Braves, like, he's been in the playoffs like each of the last 4 seasons. But listen, his strikeout numbers and walk numbers
are terrible.
Compared to where they are over his career are not good. Listen, I'm not going to completely write off McHugh, but I will say he has to earn it. Like, I think even as good as Tonkin's been, maybe they both make it. Because let's talk about this guy, Jesse Chavez. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't even know when this guy's coming back. It could be mid-September. I mean, we really haven't heard much. I know he's starting to throw bullpens, I think. Haven't really heard much. I know he had a 1.51 ERA. He's a fan favorite, but doesn't he always seem like he's the guy who gets left off in these situations? Like, oh, we just ran out of spots, Jesse. Like, sorry, you're gone.
Yeah,
it's easy to tell him that though, because you're gonna be like, Jesse, you're gonna get a ring, chill out, and he understands it. He's old, he's been there, done that. I mean, the Braves have done this time and time. He's a beat dog, dude. I mean, this Braves team has consistently hurt this man. Traded him away, didn't re-sign him. I also think though that Colin McHugh absolutely has to earn it. I saw from 2021, 2022, 2023, his strikeout rate has fallen dramatically and his walk rate has risen dramatically. If anybody's spot, Elder, Wright, Tonkin, Dylan Lee, Brad Hand, all these guys, in terms of jeopardy, I think Colin McHugh, I don't care about playoff experience. And I know I say that for Charlie Morton, we're going to go with the, playoff experience guy. Colin McHugh has been downright awful. I mean, as Chase likes to say, he's been a tomato can for much of the year. So, I know he's a versatile weapon out of the bullpen.
Somehow, I always look at his ERA and expect it to be worse, though. Like, he has a 3.55 ERA, and I'm like, dude, I feel like he's got like a 7 ERA.
That's shocking.
Yeah, so, he's been – Tonkin's definitely been better. Like, to me, I feel like Tonkin being left off is almost like – I feel like Tonkin deserves a spot. I think more than anything, Tonkin deserves a spot. I think Dylan Lee gets the spot over Brad Hand as the lefty.
He's more versatile and pitch better, I think.
I think Dylan Lee gets the spot, but it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of decisions. Like I said, the depth of this pitching staff is very good. It's a good problem to have. A lot of teams don't have this problem. They got minor leagues trying to fill out the roster, so it's a good problem. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about the biggest threats to Georgia and their third straight national championship.